Welcome to Bias Breakdown. I'm your host, Kara Rucker. USAID, a federal agency getting the DOGE treatment and a lot of media attention right now. Large sums of its spending are being scrutinized by right-leaning news outlets. The rhetoric from the political right axes the agency. Meanwhile, left-leaning media are fact-checking the spending claims. The rhetoric from the political left saved the agency. It's a fast-moving news cycle right now, but we're going to talk about some of the most important and conflicting talking points coming from the left and right. The facts you should know about USAID. That's the focus of today's Bias Breakdown.
Join Straight Arrow News. See the slant, avoid the bias. When others skew the facts, we give you the truth down the center. Welcome to Bias Breakdown.
Let's set the table with a clip from Face the Nation that captures the political divide. A Republican senator speaking on CBS, a left-leaning network, according to All Sides. The senator mentions a few examples of what he calls wasteful and dangerous spending, with host Margaret Brennan pushing back and calling his claims false. Take a listen.
USAID has been out of control. I've demanded accountability from AID. They've refused it. As an appropriator, I've asked them to be very clear about, for example, their role funding Hamas in Gaza. They would not comply. They will not tell us what they do. Now that we start to find out some of the programs that AID has been funding, if you think about it, sex change operations in Guatemala, LGBTQ programs in Serbia,
the U.S.
this is
government
ridiculous.
does not
This is
fund
so beyond
sex
the pale.
change operations or fund Hamas. You know that, though. But you sit on...
That is not true, Margaret. I couldn't get the Secretary of State. I asked him 3 times to tell me that we were not funding Hamas through AID. He couldn't do it.
Let's break this down. First, USAID funding for sex change operations in Guatemala. Brennan says that's false, and other left-leaning outlets also including this in their USAID fact-check reports. We'll show you a few examples. The New York Times, a left-leaning outlet, fact-checked White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's claim that a $2 million USAID grant was given to Guatemala for sex changes. The Times wrote, "This is exaggerated," and she omitted context or misstated key details in her descriptions of 5 grants. A $2 million grant was awarded to Association Lambda, a Guatemalan group to deliver gender-affirming healthcare. Gender-affirming care is an umbrella term that includes surgery, as well as hormone therapy, counseling, hair removal, and speech therapy. It is unclear how much of the $2 million, if any, specifically funded surgical interventions. The Washington Post, another left-leaning outlet, in a piece called "The White House's Wildly Inaccurate Claims About USAID Spending," one claim highlighted $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala. The Post wrote, "This is misleading, as it suggests USAID arranged for sex changes. The 3-year grant to a Guatemala LGBTIQ+ organization was to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming healthcare." Here's a look at the grant from the official government site for federal spending data, showing the $2 million award, $350,000 of it already spent. In the description, "deliver gender-affirming healthcare." While it is not itemized to show how much went specifically for sex change surgeries, the money was given to a Guatemalan group that helps with gender transitions. Aside from the $2 million USAID grant, the group received 2 other government awards from the agency Inter-American Foundation, all during the Biden administration. Some other confirmed USAID grants have gained a lot of attention, including $20 million to a nonprofit called Sesame Workshop to produce Sesame Street shows in Iraq. The show began in 2021. The spending justified on some left outlets and called a waste by the right.
It's a show that helps teach values, helps teach public health, helps prevent kids from dying from dysentery and disease, and helps push values like collaboration, peacefulness, cooperation in a society where the alternative is ISIS, extremism, and terrorism. And to your point, It's pennies on the dollar.
$20 million on a Sesame Street show in Iraq, $45 million for DEI scholarships in Burma. We could go on and on, as you can see on your screen, but it would take us pretty much the entire night to read through the list of billions of wasted taxpayer dollars.
Now digging into Senator Hagerty's claim that USAID money could have funded the terror group Hamas. In his interview with Margaret Brennan, Hagerty referred to this exchange he had with Biden's Secretary of State Antony Blinken in 2023. Take a listen.
Can you guarantee, though, that U.S. taxpayer dollars didn't go to Hamas to help fund this attack on October the 7th?
So everything that we're doing in terms of making sure that the assistance is used for purposes for which it's designated, not for other purposes. As I said, we have a robust system in place.
Senator Hagerty then pointed to a State Department internal assessment from 2021 obtained through a FOIA request. It states, due to its overall strength and level of control over Gaza, we assess there is a high risk Hamas could potentially derive indirect, unintentional benefit from U.S. assistance to Gaza. There is less, but still some risk U.S. assistance would benefit other designated groups. This debate is playing out in media headlines today. How much USAID money has benefited terror groups? Right-leaning news outlets like Fox News point to a study that found extremist groups raked in millions from USAID. But left-leaning news outlets like CNN suggest the dismantling of USAID means U.S. money could reach terror groups. One suggesting USAID prevents terrorists from accessing funds, while the other suggests it's already happening under USAID's watch. CNN wrote, USAID requires that programs in Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon, the West Bank and Gaza, and Yemen receive partner vetting in order to ensure that taxpayer funds do not end up supporting groups like Hamas. And these vetting efforts have ground to a halt because of the reduction in staff at USAID. But the report also notes the USAID Office of Inspector General has previously identified gaps in the scope of partner vetting. Right-leaning outlets are highlighting those gaps in vetting identified by a conservative think tank group. Writing, the think tank reported that among its top findings, USAID was found to have given more than $900,000 to a Gaza-based terror charity called Bayadr Association for Environment and Development. Founded in 2007, shortly after Hamas's takeover of the Gaza Strip, Bayadr operates in close cooperation with the Hamas regime. Its 2021 annual report notes coordinations and meetings with Hamas's Ministry of Interior and other ministries. These contrasting sentiments in the media over USAID are evident even further. Take the choice to interview former USAID employees. This is something to be cautious about when consuming news. It's something my grandpa told me, and it's stuck with me for years. You can find an expert to say one thing and another expert to say the exact opposite. And networks will often interview an expert to build onto their preferred political narrative. This being one case. CNN on the left interviewing a former USAID administrator who says USAID is crucial and necessary. Fox News on the right interviewing a USAID whistleblower who says the agency is full of tremendous waste. Take a listen.
These are programs that range from eradicating polio to fighting outbreaks that are occurring right now. Bird flu monitoring is being shut down, is already shut down. It's already closed. And so this is the demolition, unconstitutional demolition of a critical agency. And it is, it's gonna cost lives.
There is tremendous waste within the aid industrial complex. This is well known, it's been well documented.
But you're a Democrat, and you raised this issue at USAID, and you were punished for that, weren't you?
That's exactly right. So I was elevated to be the acting deputy chief of staff of the Global Health Bureau during COVID, and I immediately observed incredible delay and arrogance on the part of career bureaucrats.
Here's how things stand with USAID. The agency's Washington headquarters has had its lettering stripped from the building. The Trump administration evicting USAID and its employees. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is now the acting director, reviewing USAID activities. Rubio saying humanitarian assistance can continue as other foreign aid programs are frozen while under review. Last week, all direct hire employees at USAID were going to be put on administrative leave before the courts intervened. According to a Rubio memo, he plans to keep fewer than 300 essential USAID employees, a reduction from 14,000. Staffing directives have been paused while unions fight the administration in court. While staffing questions in the agency remain, programs deemed essential have continued, despite Boston and Houston reported food distributions at ports slowed due to confusion on what programs were frozen and which ones could proceed. Rubio reiterated there is a blanket waiver for all food, medicine, and life-saving programs to continue under the federal freeze. President Trump suggested in a Fox interview prior to the Super Bowl, the future of USAID will see some of those beneficial programs stay, but USAID responsibilities could be merged within another department's oversight. But Trump reiterated USAID waste needs to be cut.
We're talking about hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars. It's just a fraud. It's a big scam. Now, there's some good money, and we can do that through any one of a number. I think I'd rather give it to Marco Rubio.
In summary, USAID was one of DOJ's first targets to cut federal spending. The Trump administration is making moves to dramatically shrink the agency. But some issues over what programs and which staff stay are still being decided by a State Department review and the courts. Themes of the political left and right are playing out in the media, with the coverage from left-leaning outlets largely defending USAID, and right-leaning coverage largely supporting deep cuts to the department. Facts are being framed differently depending on an outlet's political lean, and that means you might not be getting the full picture. And that's your bias breakdown. Hey, thanks for watching the latest episode. At SAN, we're on a mission to dissect important stories that matter to you, breaking them down in a way that's easy to understand and easy to spot political biases that can warp the truth. You can find other episodes by searching Bias Breakdown on any of your favorite podcast platforms. As always, leave your feedback in the comment section so we can review it and use it as we navigate this busy news cycle together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.